And we're going to stand and have prayer by Commissioner Jack Owens, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time to come together as a board, Lord, and as citizens. Lord, we just thank you for the opportunity for all of us, Lord, to be servants for this county. We just ask your blessing over the decisions and the dialogue today, Lord. And all that we do in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Officially call our meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda will be the approval of the agenda. We have a change to make. After the approval of the minutes, we're going to add item C. We're going to have Sheriff Vaughn, who is the Sheriff of Hertford County, who is with us today, and we're glad to have him. He will be presenting a plaque to our sheriff, Sheriff Webb. We thank him for coming, and we do welcome you to our commission meeting, Sheriff Vaughn. We will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as changed.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, we have our minutes from March 7th. March 19th. And the special meeting we had at the Board of Education. If you review the minutes, are there any corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one correction on page 1040. Commissioner Owens' name needs to be included there at the top.
Yes, it does. It's already been done.
All right, thank you.
We do have one administrative change we need to make on 1041. It says that Lou, your community center director, discussed a new law that. Okay. It's a pleasure of the board. We can approve the minutes as corrected for March 7th, 19th, and March 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Minutes will be adopted as corrected. Okay. At this time, we're going to we do introduce again Sheriff Vaughn, and we're going to ask Sheriff Vaughn if he would come and if you would present the plaque or recognition of our sheriff.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Fine.
Good.
Thank you. Let me say first, good morning again. It's an honor and privilege to be in the second greatest county in the state of North Carolina. It's great to be here this morning, and it's an honor for me to be here with Sheriff Webb. I want to tell you a little bit about Sheriff Webb first before I present his plaque to him. I come to you as one of the members of 10 sheriffs on the North Carolina Sheriff's Education and Training Standards Commission from Raleigh. Sheriff Webb and I met each other in 1987. He came over to Hertford County as a deputy. And I tell him all the time, it's a little scary now, but I trained him. He's a great sheriff. He has worked hard. I don't have to tell the citizens and you all commissioners, you know it. He's worked hard. He trains his staff. He tries to educate his staff. And for the past 16 months, he's been in a tough training that was put on by the Institute of Government out of Chapel Hill, which was a part of the Sheriff's Leadership Institute. And it gives me great privilege and honor to present that certificate to Sheriff Webb this morning. You know, years ago, it was where we could, in the West, we could put a badge on a deputy and send him out on a manhunt. This day and time, we have to be trained, and we just can't slap a badge on a man and put him to work. It's a lot of training and education that goes with it. But it's a privilege for me to present this certificate to Sheriff Webb this morning. And it reads, North Carolina Sheriff's Association has awarded to Edward Webb the certificate of satisfactory completion of the requirements of the Sheriff's Leadership Institute, awarded this 9th day of March 2012 at the William Ida Friday Center, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thank you again. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, should we hand that microphone to Sheriff Webb for just a moment?
Yeah.
Oh, turn it on.
Just once.
No, it's not.
How about now? I'm not worried about it. I hope everybody can hear me. I just want to say thank you to my good friend Sheriff Vaughn. As I said, he and I go back to 1987. He trained me. He was my training officer. We worked together. Rode a million a night in Hertford County. Worked over there together, and we have been friends ever since. It's been a privilege to serve the citizens and to here as a sheriff in the county. And one of the things that that was brought to me from my fellow comrades over in Hertford County and Chief of Police, retired Chief Steve Hoggett, was the importance of education and training for your officers. The better trained the officers are for the county and the cities, they can serve the citizens so much better. I believe in training, and I continue going to school, trying to get as many hours of training that's required of me as sheriff, but also my deputies were required to have 36 hours each year, and I continue to support their training. The reason I say that is because if it wasn't for you all, the commissioners, allowing us to have a travel budget and the money there to travel to be able to go to these schools and require these certifications that are required of us, it would not be possible. And you as a citizen, as I say, as a citizen, you are my boss. You all are my boss. And I appreciate the support you all give me in the office of sheriff, and I enjoy my job as sheriff, and I hope to continue serving you as sheriff of Gates County. Thank you.
I do thank you, Sheriff Vaughn and Sheriff Webb. We do want to, mention while we are on this particular item that Gates County has partnered with Hertford County to provide housing for our inmates since the Chowan County Sheriff Department has decided to go with the Pasquotank County Albemarle Division of Jails. So we're very thankful for being able to have that partnership. Financially, it's going to be a great advantage for us, and it's a blessing to have been able to make this arrangement at this time. So we're thankful for that partnership that we have with them, and we look forward to that working out well for the county. Thank you, Sheriff. Okay, the next item is our citizens' comments. All right, the first on the list is Mr. Anthony Felton.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
The last meeting I was at was February 2nd. I missed a good full month due to health problems. But I was able to, or a friend of mine was able to show me something that was on the internet that was kind of disturbing to me. When I come up here, usually I'm speaking from a piece of paper. But I'm reading from a hard copy and quote, Mr. Felton remarking like he does every meeting about my site. Funny thing is I was the one that befriended him on Facebook and got him going to the meetings. As I've said in the past, it appears that Commissioner Twine is prompting me, and I have several clips during my breaks that Mr. Felton goes straight to Twine to seem for reinsurance says that he is following direction properly. I didn't know during breaks you can be videoed. Is that true, or
Say that again now.
Being videoed during breaks?
During breaks. I'm not aware of it, and we wouldn't have control over that. If it's is it outside of the
Right in here.
area? I'm not aware of it, that it was happening.
Anthony, are you speaking about the county video in this or some independent citizen?
Independent citizen.
Then I think the chairman for today has said it correctly. Wouldn't be something that we could control.
Okay, because usually when they have breaks, the cameras here go off because if you watch it on the Gates County site, it goes blank.
Yes.
And I didn't know that, somebody can video camera, during the break, something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that, we do allow cameras in public meetings, and if someone is misusing it, certainly if what they've done is a violation of what the law allows, then, actions can be taken as a result of that. But as far as the commissioners prohibiting cameras from the public meetings, we wouldn't be able to do that. But we would, ask all of our citizens to be courteous towards one another and do what is right by one another.
Okay. Let's see, what else is there? Others are watching as well and had brought to my attention. Then I started watching. He's always reading from a sheet of paper now. Well, I've seen people come out here and, read from notes and paper. I don't see nothing wrong with that. And up here, I'm posting this break clip for this week only because it was handy. If you listen closely, Mr. Felton tells Twine he is worried about getting in trouble. Twine responds with, as long as you don't use anyone's name, that won't happen. And I never use no one's name or, where this, site come from. Let's see. That's excellent advice, Mr. Twine. It won't be a good thing if Mr. Felton was sued for defamation, as I'm a private citizen. Once anyone gets up and speak at the public commissioners meeting, it's basically up for grabs. Not everyone needs to go to a commissioners meeting to speak. Well, I thought, people have freedom of speech. It depends on how you use it. And if it's 5 people and you got a comment list, I'll set on paper up there if I got to make a comment. Where on a good day, there may be 10 people that will hear what you had to say. What a waste of time and effort. I read hundreds of people with these videos in my site. Matter of fact, my 4-year anniversary is this week, and I hate every second that I have been here exposing them. And she got down here, happy anniversary to me. That's about it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. next citizen's comment would be Mr. Sidney Pierce. Sidney?
I was going to say that quote, unquote me.
Okay. Sidney Pierce. And I believe Mr. Thomas Hill.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
How you doing today?
All right.
All right, good morning, Board Commissioners. I'd like to first, of course, introduce myself. Many of you already know me, of course. My name is Sidney Pierce. I am the Republican candidate for the Hodgesville District, and I'm here to speak on behalf of what me and my Republican colleague are part of our platform. We are going to be introducing an idea to bring about the JRLTC to the high school. Now, this is his brainchild idea, but I will be adopting it as part of my platform and endorsing it as well. So with that being said, I yield the rest of my time to my Republican colleague, Mr. Hill.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, county commissioners, I bring forth to you an idea that children are not born with instruction manuals. We, for too long, have put the teachers in the classroom for the instruction givers, as well as the parents in the home. I am pro-military. I am a military brat, and I too have spent time in the junior ROTC. I am here to say proudly that in my first year, I received the Military Excellence. I was the best of the best. This is a program that is fully funded by the United States Department of Defense, and I personally have went to Chowan County to see their cadets in action. They have an Army Junior ROTC, again, fully funded by the United States Department of Defense. The military pays for 100% of their program, split into two different parts of their budget. One being more of a chump change budget for them to get various little items that's needed, and the other is for them to actually spend for their uniforms, their rifles for their drill teams. This is something I'd like to see right here in Gates County in our high school. We lack it, we need it, and I think that we could best be prepared to give our children the preparations that they need to go into society as a more productive citizen of Gates County. And again, this is a fully funded idea. The only thing that we would be held responsible for is 50% of two teachers' salaries. Now, surely if we could spend the money on a library that nobody wants, surely we could spend the money on two teachers and pay for their paycheck. I'm also pro-education, and why not wrap the military and the education wrapped up into one? I also had the privilege and the honor of speaking with a gentleman by the name of Captain Keith. This gentleman is the Coast Guard Junior ROTC in Elizabeth City. And again, the Department of Homeland Security pays for that, as well as the Department of the Navy. It is one of two programs, one being in Florida, the other one right here in North Carolina. When I had the pleasure of speaking with him, he sent me on the internet a copy of his instruction manual. I would ask that this commissioners meeting take a hard look at what is truly needed. Not a library right here in Gates County, but our children that's growing up. Our children that will be passed on the torch. And I seek that, that this be a consideration. And of course, my next stop will be the Board of Education right here in Gates County, and we'll see what happens. But this is part of many ideas that I have, and I would ask that you all take high consideration of this. And again, may I remind you all, gentlemen, this is a fully 100% paid for by the U.S. Department of Defense, and the only thing that we would pay for is two teachers' salary, 50% each. I would ask that you all consider this, and I would ask that you make yourselves available for perhaps at another time and date for the details thereof. I would be glad to offer any information I have. And again, my name is Thomas Hill. I am the Republican nominee for Core Peak, North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Yes, sir.
Okay, our next citizen comment is Mary Lou Glennon.
I wasn't sure where to sign up, but I can wait until the public hearing for the two ordinances. But that'd be more appropriate to give an opportunity to speak then.
Sure. Okay. All right, we'll go into our departmental reports, and the first item on the agenda is our finance officer, Ms. Sandy Pittman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Got budget amendments first on the agenda. The first one, number 48, is to budget some miscellaneous revenue that the Water Department has received. The different appropriations where Timmy would like to put this money is listed. Most of this came from the sale of some scrap metal that they had. I believe you all approved that surplus, a couple of months ago, and now he'd like to budget that money to spend it. Number 49 is to budget an increase in revenue in the Genesis program. This revenue will come from the JCPC grant. REBA has also included some different reallocations within that grant, including the $1,500 additional. Number 50, we have received the $947 for electronics recycling grant this year. That money comes to us and then goes out to the PCG group that handles our convenience sites and landfills. We did not budget that. We didn't expect to receive that money this year, but we have, and we need to send that money back out to them. And that's the only amendments that I have. Do you have any questions?
Okay. Any discussion?
I make a motion that we approve amendments 48, 49, and 50 as presented.
Properly motion.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt and accept the budget amendments as presented. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome. The next thing we have is an update on the budget deficit that we discussed a few months back. We have gotten through March and have finalized some numbers, and you should have had some information on the table when you got here this morning. I've included kind of an update of some increased revenue projections, how we would like to expend those, and there's a budget amendment attached, and I've also included the original information that was presented a couple of months ago, just for your reference. Both the Medicaid hold harmless and our state and federal admin lines are projected to come in considerably above what we expected. The projects we would like to fund with that, and we're recommending, are to release the courthouse roof, flooring, and carpet and repairs that we had encumbered to make up that shortfall. We would also like to look at upgrading the technology at DSS. We would be able to make the upgrades they need all at one time and get them where they need to be. This is a budget that's been cut for several years in a row, and we'd like to see that brought to where it needs to be. And then we could start on a cycle of upgrading that, a certain percentage of that each year, as we've discussed at budget times. There are various building repairs that we've talked with Crystal about doing that we probably need about $15,000 to do, including some upgrades at GITS, the extension building, the admin building here in the courthouse. The last thing listed on here, the community center roof, this one seems probably kind of out of the blue. In our capital improvement plan, we had planned to make this happen next year. And looking at the revenues and what we have available this year, a lot of the cuts that we made back, I believe, in January were for items that do not need to be released and don't need to be funded this year. Some of the things like, the money we had set aside for the Sunbury School, for sheriff's vehicles, aborting inmates, those are things that we've been able to work around, and we do not need to release that money. We'd like to use some of that money to go ahead and put the roof on the community center this year, which will allow us that much more room next year in our budget to take care of some other things.
It's more or less a question to the county manager. Did we get the inspection of the community center roof? to see what condition it was in, or?
Yes, Edwards Roofing went out and believes it needs to be, well, let me back up. It's two parts to the community center roof. There's the part that covers the ViQuest and the offices, and there's the part that covers the actual gym. What we were told yesterday is that the ViQuest part needs to be replaced immediately, that the part that covers the gym may have 2 to 3 years left on it. And this 66,000 would replace all of it now.
All right.
I'd like to ask some questions as county manager in regard to that. Toby, did they make any recommendations about any structural changes to the roof that you're aware of, or just?
No, they want to go back with a rubber roof again.
Okay. All right. And then on the courthouse roof, I believe there was possibility of some insurance help there. Is that?
I don't believe there was a potential for it, but I believe they were denied basically because they believe the roof was more of a wear and tear age issue and less of a damage issue.
Okay.
So, Sandy,
Sir?
so with what you have here then, the way and let me see if I do understand this. So by looking at this, this is the increase of 283 above what we had originally projected, so we're really 26,000 under the understatement.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
This is 283 that will make up 283 of that shortfall of
Okay.
300,000,
So,
correct?
and this is just a reallocation of what was originally in the budget on this
Yes.
disbursement.
Yes, because some of the cuts that we had identified a few months back are cuts that don't need to be undone, for lack of a better word. And those are funds that don't need to be released, so we can use those funds to cover other projects that do need to be handled.
So how fast are we going to get started on these?
We've already started on some of them. Crystal is working towards making some of these happen. The building repairs, she's working to get bids for the courthouse roof, the flooring and carpet and repairs. I've talked with Chase about the possibility of starting with the technology upgrade and the community center roof. We will be getting some estimates. We've had somebody come out, like we said, to just give us an idea of where we stand with that. Until you all approve, this amendment, we obviously can't do the formal things that need to be done, but we have set the motion in place to make some of these things happen.
So looking at this, we got plus $30,000, right?
Correct. I did not, when I did the appropriations here, I did not include all of it. As we said, these are projections. We expect them to be pretty close, but we also know there are other shortfalls that we're going to have to cover. When we have the new DSS director come in place, there's some overlap there. There's going to be some salaries that will need to be handled there. And there are some other things that we know may be coming up as we review the budget each month.
So you and Colleen have talked about the thing we've discussed in the DSS?
We have discussed covering her salary as far as the overlap with the new director. Is that what you're kind of encrypted there? I don't know what you and Colleen have discussed.
Well, no, the board. I'll reserve that for right now.
Okay.
Or should I? It's fine. Would you address that then, Colleen, please?
The part-time position?
Yes.
We are looking at filling the part-time office assistant 3 position
Colleen,
approved, but
could you come to the microphone, please?
Well, and I'm looking at this with this, it looks to me like the DSS state and Fed admin's 184 positive of this, so I think this is very appropriate here with the plus 30 with what I'm seeing on this paper. Would you agree, Mr. Jordan?
Well, we're saying plus 30.
Well, if
Are
you-
we still 30?
Yeah. if you
We're
look
30
at-
under, is that right?
No, if you're looking at this, 283 and 254, roughly 30,
We've
29.
we're asking to appropriate all but about 30,000 of the projected increases.
Right, compared to the $309,000 that was the deficit.
Well, we've identified 283 that we
Thousand.
think is increased, but we've only got 254 that we're asking you all to appropriate
Right.
today, and I think Mr. Hoare is referencing that extra 30.
Yeah, not,
I think she's saying the 309 is gone. 309 has been addressed, is what she's saying.
Yeah,
There's
that-
no longer a budget deficit,
there's no longer, so the 283,
plus the additional cuts that you've already made, like with the sheriff's car, where he got his 3 cars, we had leftover money, I think fuel
Right.
maybe, There were several different things in the original plan that we gave you that would take up the difference.
Okay.
The only things that we really needed to identify that we needed to cover out of the original reductions were the courthouse flooring, the courthouse roof, and the courtroom repairs. All other cuts made there did not need to be released. So those are cuts that we've made that have made that up. So that money, any money we make up above the flooring, roof, and repairs will be money we can appropriate elsewhere.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I think that leads into Colleen wanting to hire a part-time office assistant 3 position prior to the new director coming in.
Yeah, and I learned about this yesterday as Sandy and I were talking about the technology upgrades and just kind of bringing me up to speed about what she was proposing. And I didn't initiate the discussion with her about the part-time position. But if you recall, in the last budget cycle, the Board of Commissioners did approve a permanent part-time office assistant 3, however, did not increase the already negotiated budget in order to fill that position, and recommended that if I could find the funds within what the commissioners had already worked to appropriate in the budget ordinance, that we could fill it. And we have looked at that a number of times throughout the year. We've had some other priorities come up. We had 2 retirements and a resignation that had some payout at the end, and it was never practical financially to fill the position. We had the State Division of Medical Assistance has completely revised the Medicaid transportation policy and is requiring local departments of social services to bring in-house several critical administrative functions for that program, and my Medicaid transportation staff are struggling to meet those demands. And so they asked that we revisit the ability to fill that office assistant position. And I took that back to the Board of Social Services, discussed my concerns about the lack of available funds, excess funds in the budget to cover it. They voted their support to fill that position and to include it in the coming year budget, not only as a continuation, but also as a recommendation for an expansion to full-time, to meet both the increase in food and nutrition services and the change to the Medicaid transportation policy. I have been looking at how to make that happen. I am concerned about hiring a position and not being here to defend it in the new budget, and leaving a new DSS director with the burden of defending this position to maintain it funded in the new budget, to expand it to full-time, whatever we're able to accomplish in the next budget cycle, and have really struggled with that. I talked with my 2 county commissioner representatives on my board who had some dialogue and came back to me and said that they felt the commissioners would support filling that position temporarily, with it being upfront with whoever is selected as temporary, with an end date of June 30th. And then to ask or to prepare the new director to defend that position in the new budget. And if successful, then that person could apply along with the rest of the general public interested in a permanent part-time office assistant 3 position for the new fiscal year. I still struggle with the funds available in my own budget. I have not yet made a decision about whether or not I will fill that temporarily. There's a lot of training involved, and to train someone for potentially 2 months of running a program and then possibly having to end that contract and not have that position in July is of concern to me, and frankly to the new DSS director as he's preparing to come on board. So knowing that the funds would be allocated for that in advance makes me feel better about filling that temporary position. My concern is not having a temporary position. We've done that before, where we've contracted and it ends at a certain date and there's no question about it. It's not a layoff. It's not a surprise, those kinds of things. But honestly, I did not want to argue with the finance department about the availability of funds and have to deal with those dynamics in the short term that I have remaining. So the board's ability to support that and to allow me to move forward to fill a temporary part-time office assistant 3 position with an end date of June 30th would be fantastic. I think it would position the new director to not have to deal with the issues that the three that share the Medicaid transportation program are facing. But I will proceed based on your decisions this morning. It essentially would be 2 months' worth of salary, no benefits, at an approximately 50% return in state and federal admin. It's a $23,000 position, if my memory serves me. I think my math was if we had $2,000, it would cover 2 months' worth of salary. But I honestly don't have $2,000 in my budget to pull that's not committed to other shortfalls. So that's all. Thank you. Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we appropriate at least $4,000 to $5,000 out of this 29 overage here to said position.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to appropriate, you said 4,000 to 5,000?
Well, whatever it, I think 5,000 definitely would cover any situation there, at least for 2.5 months. Maybe 3.
I'll second that. All right, it's been motioned and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
All right, we will appropriate 5,000 for the support of the Office Assistant 3 position.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll discuss it when we get, there's a budget amendment attached to all of this discussion that does not obviously include that. I can add that to this budget amendment if you all want to approve it with that modification, and then I can take care of it that way rather than have to bring it back to the board. That way we can go ahead and move forward. And basically, it would be the appropriation of whatever funds are needed with a half match from the state and federal admin with a $5,000 increase in expenditures.
County Manager, you have something?
Yeah, I was fine with until the part where she said anything that's needed. I think it was
It's
5.
5,000, yes.
Yes, not
yes.
anything needed, it's 5.
Yes, it'd be
And it-
5,000 in additional
Yeah.
expenditures, 2,500 from state and federal admin, and then the Medicaid hold harmless. You know, on here, I'd only use the 93.5, that's all I needed. We can add the 2,500 to come from that, that's fine. The funds are available.
So will it actually show 5,000 or the half of that would be reimbursed?
It'll show 5,000 in the expenditures, it'll show 5,000 in the revenues, half will come from state and federal admin, and half will come from the other places we've identified.
Can I make a motion that we approve budget amendment associated with amendment of the $5,000?
Second. Discussion, County Manager.
I just have one question, I just want to clarify. That was a temporary position, correct?
Yes.
Okay. To end June 30th, is that right?
June
To end June 30th?
Yes.
Okay.
Chairman, did you need a second?
I second it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right, all opposed, nay. All right, it's been unanimously approved that we will allocate 5,000 in a new budget amendment. Okay?
Okay, yes, I'll use that same budget amendment, I'll just add it to that one.
Modify 54.
All right, modify 54. That'll
Right.
be in the record.
Okay, and I will put that in with next month's packets as an FYI so that you'll have a copy of it just for your records.
Okay?
Okay?
One more question. The
Yes, sir.
USDA loan.
Yes, sir. Yes. According to what I've read, it is okay to prepay it with no penalties.
All right, how about refinance?
I would assume that that's all
I
part
would
of it. I
think-
have not looked into that because that's a 30-year note. To refinance it, we'd have to take it down to 10 or 15 years.
That's,
And
well, I've been
Right.
plugging those numbers in, and that's exactly what I'd like to proceed on, but it would be possible to pay off that USDA loan with no penalties whatsoever,
to the best of my
and
knowledge.
go get a private BB&T, PNC, Wells Fargo, whatever, to refinance that. I'd like to see us move forward on looking at that, on what we can get on a 15 or 20-year. I think we got, 26 years left on that to improve our our rate as well as our time, and see some different schedules on that, even as much as a 10-year, 10, 15, 20 rates and whatever, if we could.
Okay, what I can do is use the rates that we've gotten, that
I
we've
think-
done recently, and kind of do amortizations and
I-
look at
and
it
I
before
think
we
it's
put it out
due
for
in-
bid.
I think the next payment's due in September, and I think I looked at it, the principal was about 1.7 million, I believe it is. 1,751,000, I think, exactly, so.
I can do that. I'll email that to you all once I can get some
Thank you, Sandy.
amortizations. Okay.
Good job.
You may want to put that on the next commissioners meeting agenda.
Sure, we can discuss that.
May meeting. Yes. All right.
Biometric screening.
The last thing I have on here is the biometric screening. You all tabled this at, I believe, the early March meeting. We were able to get, I believe, 35, maybe 37 people signed up for this. We got them signed up. We've met our 30 minimum, assuming everyone shows up. If we have a bunch of cancellations, we might have issues. Hopefully, we'll have the participation we need and can eventually bring down our healthcare costs. If not, we'll have to maybe go back and revisit this, I guess.
So that represents what percentage of the total?
A little under half. We have 79 enrollees, including
79.
retirees.
So only 37, really?
Yes, and we had to spend hours and hours on the phone to bring in that 37. Yes.
So,
That's
Sandy,
disappointing.
so what we discovered was that it was not mandatory, but we were held to a minimum standard of participation.
Correct, and that was in order for Cigna to pick up the tab. If we hadn't had that minimum, the county would have had to pay the tab. So, and, you know, we'd have had to gone back and deal with that in a different way if need be.
Right, gentlemen, I believe that we signed up with Cigna for a 2-year period.
I believe Cigna was on an annual basis. I believe we signed up with Pierce Groups possibly for 2 or 3 years.
That's right. It was Pierce Group that was admin type thing, I guess, for
Correct,
2
yeah.
years. But I just want to remind you that we do need to push for greater participation, because
Yes.
when that renewal contract comes up, if you're at 30% or if you're at 75%, that's going to dictate which rate that we get. So I don't know why the participation is not greater, but you know, that is lowering the cost for our employees. So for that greater participation. So we need to push for that and find out, is there a deadline coming up to renewal? If it's 90 days out or 60 days out of renewal, they're going to calculate that. We need to know what that
Yes.
is well in advance and have a strong campaign for that. Thank you, Sandy.
And I think that's based on what Ms. McGinnis said last meeting. I think we need to really do a good selling job on there too, because what Jack just said is extremely important, and not only to the fact that it is 100% paid. So there is a sense of personal responsibility here to try to continue to help the county reduce their costs, and by these actions, by doing this kind of stuff, exemplifies that kind of behavior that these people look at. They look at it very closely. And so we do need to be selling that and selling it hard. And because it is a cost savings involved if you do that.
And one of the things that was mentioned at the meetings we had is they look at whether or not these are mandatory.
Right.
And these are not mandatory, it's voluntary, and that makes a difference
Right.
when they're shopping around for our
Yes.
renewal costs, which we're in the process of now. We'll see where that goes. But hopefully, we'll have at least the 30 minimum show up, and we can go on from there, and maybe next time have a better participation rate.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Do you reckon it would be possible that Mr. Chappell and Sandy could have a meeting with all the county employees and sit down and explain this to them, and everybody gets the same picture at some time or another within the next, say, 30 days? Do you think, Mr. Chappell, is that a possibility
Sure.
also?
We've already done it with the department heads to
Right.
give that to them.
But I think everybody that's an employee needs to sit down and hear the very same message.
Sure.
Hey, this could reduce your cost,
That's right.
you know, by joining it also, and you might get a little better participation out of it.
Well, and I think a lot of them don't realize that, you know, I think they feel that maybe it's county paid, it won't affect them, but eventually if that rate continues to grow, the county will not be able to afford to fund it, and maybe that message needs to be out there as well, that, you know, we'd like to keep it at 100% county paid, but if the rate continues to grow, we can only do that for so long. And that and the family coverage as well is affected.
And that,
Excuse me,
go ahead. No, John.
well, one point that you could make to the employers, I mean, the employees, is that a lot of times when that new rating comes out, the county might have to opt for a higher deductible. But if they
Right.
can help us keep that rate down, maybe we can maintain the current deductibles.
Right,
So
and we've
that-
seen that the last couple of years, actually. I believe we've raised that rate the last couple of years, to at least 2, maybe even 3 years, we've had to do that. So, you know, you're right.
And in the private sector, it's a 75-25% split sometimes 80-20, so, I mean, it's a pretty good benefit when it's 100%.
That's great. And we have open enrollment coming up. Maybe we could incorporate it with our open enrollment.
Yeah, I think the concern with making it mandatory is that, you know, what's the penalty if someone doesn't
Yeah.
go or doesn't show up?
Correct.
But I do think that if it was mandatory for all employees who are at work, you know, if someone is on leave, you know, obviously they wouldn't be able to participate, or if they had vacation schedule. But if someone is on county time, I think that, you know, the county would be in their rights to have them take this screening. So I think if it was partially,
Do y'all want to reconsider your position on making it mandatory for this year?
I think I would be in favor of mandatory for all employees that are on county's time or at work. You know, if someone obviously is not here, we wouldn't implement it. And you have some control there because the
Agree.
department heads have said you needed to have a screening, and unless there was some provisions or reasons why they should not have the screening, then, you know, they would be under the direction of that supervisor or department head.
Right. A lot of the people that have declined have said, well, you know, I just went to see the doctor. I don't need to do this. Thank you. And that's not really the answer we're looking for. We understand that, but that's really not where we're going with this. But like you said, I just don't think people really understand where we're going with this.
Mr. Jordan, Commissioner Jordan, I faxed Sandy a document between now and the last meeting with a real live example of if you don't do this, you're not eligible for the coverage. So, I mean, that's what's happening in other locations. And, you know, I made that comment here at the last meeting, but I wanted Sandy to have something solid in front of her so that she would know that that is a real live situation out there.
All right. What is the pleasure of the board in regards to moving forward? Is it the pleasure that we would use the voluntary 37% that we have now, or do we want to consider possibly making it mandatory for employees that are on the county time clock at the particular date that it happens?
Well, hearing the discussion, it sort of seems like we're providing this benefit. And the comments I've heard is sort of forward-leaning toward mandatory. And it is good for the budget. It's good for the employee. It is it's confidential. Nobody holds those records in our filing cabinets. It's just like a private insurance company. They hold that key to the privacy issue. So I think it is probably a misunderstanding issue. So at this time, I will make a motion that we make it mandatory to participate to get us to 100%.
For employees that are here. We do have several employees that will be away at training that obviously cannot attend.
Well-
They've already scheduled that. but-
Well, what typically happens is you have a 90-day window or a 60-day window, and the insurance provider comes in, and if they conduct it or if we conduct it, but if they conduct it, just like the enrollment when we made the change to this new carrier, they came once and then they came again.
This is
didn't
not
they?
the case for this.
So-
And next year, when we do this in the future, maybe this being our first one of the questions we had is, would there be a makeup date? And they will not offer that to us at their cost. If we want to do it that at our cost, maybe, but the answer that I got was no, they would not come back for a second day free of charge. So I don't know if that's something we want to look at.
If we
but-
get to 30%, that's the number we want to get to for this particular carrier. So, you know, if it's mandatory for those that are present, well exceed the 30%. And then that's what we're really concerned about. You know, a lot of the employees, like you said, they've already had physicals. You know, complete physicals. So it's really to help the county financially as well. It's going to help the employees to a certain extent because they're going to find out, you know, what their medical status is. But I think that those that are present certainly would meet what we're trying to accomplish, understanding what you're saying.
Well, let me ask Sandy. Sandy, do you know how broad the examination is, the physical, whatever?
To my knowledge, they'll do cholesterol, sugar, BMI, maybe blood pressure. I believe it's just those 4 things.
Okay.
And they'll set it up where they'll meet in here, and then they'll have 2 stations where, I guess, an exit nurse or whatever they'll call it will sit down and review it with the employee and maybe discuss some option and some plan for making changes.
Okay.
That's my understanding of how it will work. And I think some of the issue, from what I've gotten the feedback from employees, is that this has been done in the past, and confidentiality was an issue. So I've worked very hard to get the information out there that the only thing that the county will know is statistics. You know, we may come back with, we saw 40 people and half of those people had high blood pressure, or 10 were at a BMI we didn't, you know, above the level, but they won't be specific per employee. And that was, I know for a big group, that was an issue, and we've straightened that out, and that helped bring our numbers up. And I'm hoping that maybe next year, as we've done, you know, after we've done this once, and employees see that there are no confidentiality issues, there's no risk of their information being leaked, that maybe they'll be more willing to come in and do this.
Gentlemen, I'm prepared to amend my motion. I'd like to move that we make this participation mandatory to all who are available the day of the activity.
Motion, second.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion?
Just, let me ask one question. The mandatory of the 37 that signed up,
No, I'm speaking about mandatory of all employees
everybody.
who are available the day of the event takes place.
I hope everybody don't stay home.
All right, it's been properly motioned and second that all available employees on the day of the screening will be required to have the screen testing. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay? We can put the word out.
Take care.
All right,
Thank
Thanks,
you
Sam.
very much.
thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is our tax administrator, Ms. Renee McGinnis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First thing I want to say is I have 100% participation in this biometric screening. And it didn't take several phone calls for us to do that either, so we're proud of that.
You were selling hard then, right?
I was, well, it's like I say, we appreciate the fact that y'all funded 100%, and we want to do what we can to keep it that way. So, the first thing we have is the collector's report. Nothing really majorly different to report on that. You do have a couple of extra columns. The first column I'll call your attention to is at the very end, the one that's in yellow, the changed percentage, which is one we discussed a little bit at the last meeting. And that percentage basically reflects the column that you have there, the changed collection is what that reflects. If you go a little further back to your left, you have a percent collected fiscal year. Those percentages there actually represent the amount that has been collected for that given tax year on the balance that we had going into this fiscal year as of July 1. So if you look at the 2010 delinquent tax year, you'll see a percentage of 56.2. That means that we have collected 56.2% of what our balance was of the 2010 taxes owing as of July 1 of last year. Any questions? Okay. One thing I will call your attention to is our current percentage, 91.51 versus last year. At this time, we were at 91.42. So you see we are a little above where we were, but we're slowly pretty much staying on that track, which we're still hoping and going to push for that 95%. Any questions in reference to the collector's report? If not, to give you a little bit of an update on our foreclosures, the ones that I presented previously to bids that we had in place, the property on US 158 west of Roduca, between Roduca and Tar Heel, has finalized with the bid of $4,110, and we will be getting that information to Mr. Godwin's office to finalize that. The property on the Tuggy Ewell Road is still open for bids. Will be open until April the 12th. Right now, we're at $12,650 with that one. Also, this morning, I did get a call from Mr. Ellis's office, and we do have another foreclosure date set for May the 8th, which is a piece of property that's actually located on Joy Lane off of Willerton Road in the Eggleston subdivision. This lot, there is no home on it. It is a vacant lot. It contains a little over an acre, and there was previously a mobile home, double-wide mobile home on the property, so it would have a septic system already installed on the property. And so we will be getting signs up in that area for that.
What is the taxes owed on that?
I think it's a little over $2,500. We do not have the quote yet on the legal fees. This just, like I say, in fact, Mr. Ellis came in right after I got in for me to sign the paperwork for him to file with that. So we can give you a further report as to what the legal fees and whatnot are at the next meeting prior to that sale.
Renee, on the Tuggy Ewell Road property, you said $12,560.
$12,650.
$650. Roughly, how many different parties are bidding on that?
Two.
Just two. Okay.
We've been going back and forth for a while now.
Well, that's good. Let them keep going back and forth.
Anyway, and like I say, April the 12th at this point is the final date for a final bid. If someone comes in and upsets that, we'll move 10 more days out. Also, I think I sent an email. Are y'all prepared to take a vote on the Zacchaeus Legal Services contract today?
We received the email, and I'm ready to move forward on it. It's been highly recommended by our attorney as well. And my only concern would be that we do not take action on foreclosures less than 2 years.
Right. And what we can do, because we will be going through, because we've got to make sure we have no bankruptcies, included in different things. People that we do have on payment plans that are up to date, we certainly don't want to include. So prior to us actually turning over that list, we'll be more than glad to send y'all a copy of that prior to the point that it's turned over.
Let me, now this group, is this the one the guy came and made the presentation?
Yes.
Now, how far are we going back now? Because that's the thing that, as I said, that concerns me. Because if you look at these numbers that when we start getting X number of years out, as I said, our percentage really is like 0.3, 0.2% that we don't collect.
Right.
So I don't want to be paying somebody, although I'm having to wait a long period of time, to just, and I haven't done the analysis of what the percentage structure that would be on collecting them early, and really, with the cost of money today and what you can earn, it really doesn't mean a whole lot. So that's fine in the current year, but I don't want to be paying somebody for something, going back.
Well, and
It
that's
just doesn't
why
make
we
sense.
will be going through and reviewing everything before we turn those over. And like I say, even with the list that we send to you, we can include in that list the number of years, that are involved, the amount that's due. So if there are any red flags that come up to y'all, we won't send it to you and the next day turn around and send it to him. We'd like some feedback if there are any red flags, that, because we sometimes miss things, so.
Renee, have you had dialogue with that firm about if we change, like Johnny's saying, if we change the years or whatever, are they going to alter their agreement drastically, you think?
No.
But, and like I said, even if you go back to, let's just look at 207 there. That, and I'm just guessing that, but I calculate, that's probably a 0.7% of what total. So, I mean,
When we look at prior years of that nature, when we're getting back that far, if we have anything that's owed, you're going to also see on up to 2011 that's due.
right.
I mean, we're not going to go back and a lot of those, what you're going to have anyway, are just going to be double-wide mobile homes that aren't going to involve land.
And as you look at, like I said, when you go through the tax records and look, we got a certain population that are the offenders most of the time. It's not. These things that you're looking at in these earlier years, a lot of these are very small bills. And I forgot how many I told you last time that I had gone that were less than, $100. I mean, it's just an astronomical amount. So,
And a lot of autos, right?
oh yeah, no question about that. So really, they're almost to a write-off period, to tell you the truth, because collectability of them is very. But that's the thing. Over a period of time here, we do get our percentage. And I mean, you're looking at current year at 91.51. Well, 7 years from now, that'll probably be 98%. Is what I'm saying. Although you're waiting for your money, why go paying somebody a lot of money to collect it right now when, if you got the money in hand, how much are you going to earn on it? You're just not going to do it. And once you start, this particular situation is going to continue going forward like this. So it's the only thing is the 10-year. After 10 years it kind of wipes off. That's the problem. So.
Now, these amounts reflect the outstanding taxes, not including penalties or with penalties?
These outstanding figures do not include interest.
Do not include interest. So, but like you say, many of the properties are automobiles, double-wide home, mobile homes, and so forth.
When you're looking at these older figures, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's no interest in 2010 in that number, 18,000?
No.
Not in those figures. The only figures you're going to see interest in here is strictly that interest column.
Okay.
Everything else is just the levy.
All right. We have a motion to move forward in the obtaining the Zacchaeus legal services for foreclosures of the delinquent properties, 2 years and above.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, been probably motion second that we move forward in adopting Zacchaeus legal services for properties delinquent 2 years and above. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay.
Okay, I will contact him and take care of that. The only other thing is I do want to remind you of your Board of E&R that will be meeting Monday, April the 30th, starting at 4 p.m. We are starting to schedule appointments at 4:30, and I'm going to schedule them through 6:45 for that evening. And we do have a few appointments. I haven't actually reviewed them as of yet, but I will get that information to you prior to the meeting. And I have emailed the handbook, the current handbook. If you do want a hard copy of that, if you will let me know, and I'll be glad to get that done and get that to you. The only other thing I did want to make y'all aware of today is my Deputy Collector, Gwen Harrell, has very successfully completed her coursework for certification. The only thing we're waiting on is she does have to have 2 years' experience in the position, which will come in December, and at that point we will be able to put in her application for certification with the state association. So,
Very good.
okay.
Thank you much.
Any questions on anything?
One question. On April the 30th, does that include the training, did we decide?
4 to 4:30
4 to
is when we will do any review and whatnot. And if you have any questions that you anticipate, if you can think to email me those prior to, so I can make sure I do have the correct answer for you and whatnot. I think the handbook does a real good job of explaining things, and I really do not think there's really any difference in the handbook except mainly the sample letters and whatnot as far as going to taxpayers and that sort of thing. But if you do have any questions, just let me know, and I'll be glad to answer those for you.
One other question. I know this is kind of impromptu, but the RFP that we
That is a work in progress right now. I am working on that in between different things. I had contacted some counties that I knew had recently put out RFPs, and I got some copies of RFPs going to 180 pages. And it's just, with the tax products, it's just a lot of details to include that we want to make sure are part of that package and whatnot. But I'm hoping to have that to you. Actually, Toby and I discussed that by the 1st of May. So that's kind of a work in progress right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you
Do
much.
I dare ask if there are any other questions? I better run while I can. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Our next item on the agenda would be Ms. Colleen Turner, DSS Director.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
I'd like to preface my presentation of these two items this morning with an announcement from the Gates County Board of Social Services. They are very pleased to announce that they have made a selection for County Social Services Director, and that candidate has accepted the position, and a start date has been negotiated. Our new Social Services Director's name is Jeffrey Merritt. He hails from Smithfield, North Carolina, currently resides in Greenville, North Carolina, is seeking a home to rent while he is pursuing the purchase of property in Gates County. He's excited about his move. Our staff are excited about him joining the agency. The board is very pleased with themselves, as they should be, and we're looking forward to a smooth transition. He has great North Carolina social services experience, and he brings a style to the table that I think will be a good fit for the staff at the department. So, that being said, his first day on the job will be Thursday, April the 19th. He was supposed to start on the 16th, but will be completing a public manager's course through the Institute of Government, and that's an important piece to his career. So I'm glad that he'll be able to get that completed before he comes on board, and I think that will be an asset to the county as well. I will, at that point, be submitting my resignation with a 30-day period of time where I will remain on county payroll. My last day in the office is anticipated to be Friday, May the 4th, with the following 2 weeks to be spent on annual leave to try and draw that down as far as possible so the payout is as minimally impactful on the county as can be. And I will be available, but not in the way. So, so congratulations to the Board of Social Services, and thank you for
Could you spell his last name?
M-A-R-E-T-T. It's his first name that's the challenge.
Yes. M-A-R.
M-A-R-E-T-T. It's actually Jeffrey, Geoffrey, Jeffrey Merritt. I think he's going to be a great addition to the agency and to the county in general. So, that being said, I come to you this morning recognizing that April is Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention and Awareness Month. The Department of Social Services staff, in particular those in the Child Welfare Program, are working to implement MAP training, foster care licensure training, to begin this month as their keynote activity in recognition of this very special month where we make extra effort to address child abuse and neglect for Gates County residents. They're excited about that course, and I believe they're still recruiting participants. So if there is anyone interested in looking further into that, they can contact Antoinette Holly with the department to ask about, or Dominique Williams. We also annually have a report to the county commissioners on child abuse and neglect issues in Gates County. The state of North Carolina meets the federal requirement for a citizens review panel through the Community Child Protection Team and Child Fatality Prevention Team systems. And in Gates County, our CCPT and CFPT are combined. We meet quarterly to review any fatality of any child due to any circumstances, and to look to identify potential system gaps that can be addressed through initiatives that the two teams together, in collaboration with other community organizations, work to address. What I sent in the packet to you is that annual report to the county commissioners for your review. Hopefully you took some time to look it over. As in past years, the first several pages are identical to the prior year. That's the standard introduction to the annual report. Lets you know what the Citizens Review Panel requirements are in terms of fatality reviews, particularly those where child abuse and neglect were factors in the death of a child. And it talks about who the mandated members are and things of that nature. When we get to Roman numeral 2, local operational procedures for your CCPT and CFPT teams, it outlines membership. This is the list of names that you all appointed last year with the few updates that were made. It explains our frequency. The team meets quarterly, January, April, July, and October at 12 noon at the Department of Social Services. We have excellent representation from all required partners and others with interest in child welfare issues. In 2011, we reviewed 5 fatalities, and that's a lot for us. That is a lot for us. 2 of them were child abuse and neglect related. 3 of them had child abuse and neglect facets that needed to be explored. And then the last 2 were natural deaths of infants. If you look in the report, other ill-defined and unspecified causes of mortality, these are generally crib death, SIDS death, congenital malformations, those kinds of things, live births of children that didn't quite make it out of the hospital. Those 2 children under those circumstances did not yield any system gaps that we could detect that needed to be addressed. The other 3, one of which was a drowning in Gates County. Initially, there were concerns, obviously, of neglect supervision. I think would be the case anytime a child drowns. However, that death was ruled accidental, and therefore no finding of abuse or neglect of that child or siblings. So we worked with that family to deal with the issues that they faced due to such an accidental tragedy that occurred within their family. The other 2 were 2 teens, the deaths of both of which were related due to an automobile accident that occurred in Gates County. And you'll note that our reviews take place a full year after the death occurs, generally. And this was no different. The 2 teens that we, most of us, if not all of us, recall having died in a car accident where the driver was suspected to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. That death yielded a lot of activity and initiative at those deaths. It yielded a lot of activity and initiatives in Gates County. If you recall, we had the Community Advisory Panel that was funded through a state incentive grant to address underage drinking and alcohol-related fatal crashes. And a lot of time and energy was spent in the following year or two to work with teens in our school system, their parents, service providers, law enforcement, to try to address some of the issues that were identified, including parents and other adults providing alcohol to youth, which is a continuing problem that we hope will continue to be addressed, and also just alcohol-related fatal crashes, who the demographics were, and trying to market to those populations the importance of not driving under the influence and the impact that it can have, not just on children, but on the lives of everyone involved. So those are the programs, or the fatalities that we reviewed, and the results of those. I will say that the drowning death did result in a partnership between the Gates County Public School System, the Community Child Protection Team, the Child Fatality Prevention Team, Gates Partners for Health, and the YMCA. And swimming safety classes were offered to all kindergartners in the Gates County school system. This was a rather young child that drowned, and so we felt, and region-wide, there was an initiative to work with the kindergartners in the 6-county judicial district to provide some swim safety lessons. And we hope to continue partnership with some local entities to offer swim lessons in the future, perhaps some scholarships for low-income families to get their kids to swimming lessons, especially considering the bodies of water that are in our community and in many, many of our backyards. Community factors that impact the well-being of families and children. Substance abuse continues to be, and probably will always be, one of our primary issues in rural Gates County. Alcohol and marijuana being the primary issues that we face in our Child Protective Services caseload. There was a rise in the last couple of years of being aware of our teens stealing their parents' prescription drugs for personal use or sale. That's an issue that I'm sure the Sheriff's Office continues to address, and we as well when we interact with them. I list out the services that we're aware of in Gates County. I think we're fortunate. We've got a number of providers that offer substance abuse services in Gates County. That hasn't always been the case, but just to name them, Port Human Services is probably our primary agency that we work with. The Uplift Foundation, Solid Foundations, Office of Rehabilitation Services, Integrated Family Services, Intensive Rehabilitation, and the ACT team. So there's no reason why we should not be able to help families deal with the substance abuse issues that are facing they and their children every day. Domestic violence continues to be at the top of our list. We have a strong partnership with Albemarle Hope Line and Roanoke Chowan Safe. They both serve Gates County. Albemarle Hope Line offers some in-house services to clients, individual therapy, and are looking to do some group work in the near future. But we just continue to work together with all the partner agencies to enhance our collaboration and improve the services that we're able to offer to families faced by domestic violence. I am disappointed to report that in the new fiscal year, the state of North Carolina will not be allocating funds for the domestic violence program based on some pretty significant cuts to the TANF program that they're facing. So our funding opportunities to serve families faced with domestic violence are shrinking. So we hope that that won't have a terribly negative impact. Substandard housing remains an issue. We've talked about this repeatedly in this room. The Gates County Housing Committee continues to address what we can in the way of substandard housing. We're working that community development block grant to do the community-wide assessment, making some headway there, and are continuing to await the outcome of a grant application that we made for urgent home repairs. We also would strongly encourage you, as you move forward in economic development, to consider the construction of public housing for our families, both families with children and seniors. You all know, probably better than many, the lack of housing for affordable housing for low-income families. So we continue to encourage you to pursue those avenues. Of course, the economy continues to impact our residents. Food and nutrition cases are up. Underemployment and unemployment remain critical issues for us, and we continue to work with the agencies charged with assisting in those areas. Talked about the swimming safety program that was offered. We continue to have concerns about all-terrain vehicle safety, gun safety, car seat safety, seatbelt safety, and we'll continue to develop initiatives to address those and to do some public education and awareness. And new to us this year as a topic of interest and intent is teen pregnancy. We continue to be toward the front of that charge in terms of the numbers of girls in Gates County that are being pregnant as teens, something that the Community Child Protection Team and Gates Partners for Health are working together to do some further digging to find out what the root causes of that are for us and to identify strategies to try to improve those statistics for our county. We investigated 74 families who had been reported for child maltreatment in 2010-11. These statistics are fiscal year based as opposed to calendar year. We had an 11.3% substantiation rate. 10% on top of that were found in need of services, and 79% were either unsubstantiated or found not in need of services, or that we were able to provide upfront services to that were no longer needed at the point where we closed our case. In addition to those reports, there are some caseload statistics for what those workers are carrying. It's a very diverse caseload, not very specialized. They know they work from birth to adoption, depending on what the needs are within a family. We had one child in foster care during 2010, 2011. She aged out, and we continue to offer support to her as an adult. Our recommendations for the Board of County Commissioners, we just ask you to continue to approve sufficient funding for DSS, as always. We need staff in order to be able to adequately and effectively serve families in the community. So again, I appreciate your support this morning for that office assistant. That will support the social work unit and allow them to focus more intently on the protective services issues that they're charged with overseeing. Fully fund a trained, dedicated law enforcement to DSS. This is something that Sheriff Webb and I have talked about for years, have never really found the door to go through to pursue this, but it is something that we both see would be an excellent opportunity to improve how we respond to child protective services cases, in particular domestic violence together, and elder abuse. Of course, we want to provide additional safe recreational opportunities for youth to divert them from dangerous activities that they engage in for lack of other options. I would add to those dangerous activities unprotected sexual activity, resulting in a teen pregnancy rate that's unacceptable to this particular team. Continue to encourage collaboration between the response agencies and domestic violence. That's just a basic standard request. You've never not supported us. We just ask you to continue to do so. There may be times in the future where the CCPT will come to the Board of Commissioners seeking some funding to do some community education and awareness. I did not put that in my budget for next year because they have not specifically identified activities that they want to engage in and did not feel that I could defend a line item that had no specific purpose at this date, but I do anticipate that those requests will be made in the future. And then just continue to identify gaps in services for county residents and help us to help you address them. We've talked about all of those. We've recommended some changes in laws or policy at the state level that will enhance child protection, and the state is looking at all 100 counties' recommendations for those changes in laws or policies and will in turn respond appropriately and accordingly, we hope. What I need action on today is the appointment of 2 individuals to serve as replacements on our current team. Bobby Lowe from East Carolina Behavioral Health is our new System of Care Coordinator and will be replacing Hope Ely, so we ask that you officially appoint her to this team. And Jeffrey Merritt, the new DSS Director, who will be taking my place not only as Director but as Chairperson of the CCPT. So we would ask that you officially appoint those two individuals, and if you have any other people that you believe would be effective in serving on this team, we would accept those recommendations and gladly incorporate them into our team and utilize their strengths that they bring to the table. Lastly, there's just a list of things that have occurred throughout the year that support our efforts to address child welfare and child protection in Gates County. The First Judicial District continues to strengthen the family court model, offering training to staff and enhanced collaboration among players in the court system working with child welfare matters. We continue to partner with Gates Partners for Health on many, many things through a joint injury prevention committee. In fact, they're working on becoming an official Safe Kids Coalition, which will be an excellent step forward for them and potentially yield grant and funding opportunities for initiatives in the future. We had some training on designer drugs in our teens this year. We had some training from Albemarle Hope Line on domestic violence and sexual assault. Always want to keep ourselves abreast of current issues in those arenas. We continue to support the Family Fun and Fitness Day, which will have its 5th annual event in September of this year, and we continue to watch that event grow and grow. Albemarle Hope Line held a Purple Ribbon campaign during October, which was Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. And then again, swimming safety classes were offered all kindergartners in the Gates County elementary schools. It's been an active year. You've got an active team working on your behalf to enhance child protection efforts in Gates County, and I am confident that Mr. Merritt, who has been leading his local community child protection team for 3 years, will continue to move this group forward in a direction that serves Gates County well.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And I have some extra copies if anyone wants a copy of that report.
HCCPG budget amendments.
Yeah. Well, let us move first on the two members that will replace Colleen and Hope Ely. Is that Bobby Lowe or Rowe?
Lowe, L-O-W-E.
Okay.
Did I say Rowe?
Well, is it Rowe?
It's Lowe, L-O-W-E.
Okay. L-O-W-E, okay. What's the pleasure of the board as far as appointing the two new members?
I move in favor of the appointment, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, it's been motion second that we would appoint the two new members to replace current DSS Director Colleen Turner and Hope Ely of East Carolina Behavioral Health. All in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, you have it.
Thank you. The one other item that I have is on behalf of the Gates County Aging and Adult Services Task Force, which also serves as the Home and Community Care Block Grant Funding Committee. And so I am here on behalf of the chair of that portion, who is Susan Scaria, the director of the Area Agency on Aging, bringing forth a recommendation from that funding committee to adjust our 2011-12 budget due to an increase in the allocation to that program for the various services that are funded through HCCBG. The original budget was approved in July at your, well, I don't know if it was the budget. July 18th was the original date of approval, at which time you approved funding for in-home services, level 1, 2, and 3, small home repairs, transportation, medical transportation, home-delivered meals, and congregate meals. And that original budget was approved. The federal government released some additional funding to the entire state. Our county received $7,066 in addition to our original allocation, and the committee voted to allocate those funds among some, but not all, of our contracted providers. So what I bring to you today is a budget amendment for the Home Community Care Block Grant. I've talked with the finance officer who will be working with me to, well, really there's only one issue of local match that needs to be addressed, and it's $111, and we'll find it in my budget, I'm sure. $111 is easier to find than a couple of thousand. But what I will tell you is in the congregate meals budget, the originally approved allocation was $18,750. The new allocation, they received $3,000 of the $7,000. They're now at $21,750. There would be a required match from the county. However, you all overmatched the nutrition program significantly, so there is no request for an additional match for that $3,000. GITS is the contracted agency that provides transportation with this fund. Their original allocation for regular transportation was $13,680. They received the lion's share of this increase of $3,066, of which there is no request of the county for match to that budget because Patrice will make that match out of her fares and other budgeted items. So no additional funds requested at this time for that. The last is the Small Home Repairs Program, which we partner, the Housing Committee partners with the Area Agency on Aging to identify recipients for these repairs. The committee opted to add $1,000 to their budget so that they could finish some projects that they had out on a waiting list, for lack of a better word. The original allocation for small home repairs was $9,092. The new allocation is $10,092. Originally, the match was $1,010. The new match is $1,121. An additional $111. Actually, this budget was approved after our budget was approved. We have $989 budgeted, so it's about $132 that we're going to have to pull over and put in there, but it's a small budget amendment that Sandy and I will work on, and she will update you at a later date. So we're not asking for additional funds. We just are asking you to consider that budget increase, be aware of the matches and where they're coming from, and to ultimately approve the increase so that they can apply those to the programs and spend that money down in a timely manner.
So we need a motion to amend the home community care block grant.
We do, and then I need to get the
$7,000.
chairman's signature on these three sheets, these three revised budgets, and the finance officers on two.
All right. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, do we have that paperwork? Because I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't believe you do.
Oh, I provided it by email. Well, I have 3 copies of each because I have to get 3 copies signed. I can bring them to you and you can look at them. Is that what you want me to do?
That'd be fine. Okay. You want to get, okay. We'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll get copies made.
She's
We'll
going to
have
make some
copies made.
copies.
10-minute break?
Yeah. We'll take a pause.
You want me to go over what you have in front of you?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
I believe where we left was, we have the $7,000 additional revenue from the grant, and we want to amend the old grant to include the new $7,000. Where is that shown, just to help us out a little bit, a little quicker?
On the pages that are presented today for signature, it does not show the actual increase. I have I guess I could have given you the original budget, but I have the original budget that was signed by Chairman Twine on July the 18th, and I can tell you the actual original and the actual original match and the new figure, if that would, and the difference, if that would be helpful.
That would be helpful.
Okay, so on the first page, which is the Gates County Services summary of the county funding plan, if you look at column C, the net service cost, originally, the nets, and we're not talking about in-home level 1, 2, or 3. They received no additional increase to their funding. So the first one is small home repair, and the original budget for small home repair was $10,102, and the new budget, I'm sorry, net service, yeah, 10,102, and now it is 11,213. The original match for that was $1,010. The new match is $1,121. And that is the only match that we've got to do a budget amendment to cover in the line item in my budget that pays the local match for that program. Transportation, column B, the original budget was $15,200 with a required local match of $1,520. The new budget is $18,606 with a required match of $1,861. And then home-delivered meals, the original budget was $33,634 with a match $33,63. Congregate meals, $28,33 with a match of $20,83. It appears that the increase is only to congregate meals, which is the program at the community center that is offered here daily. And again, the county already overmatches nutrition by a significant margin, so there's no additional funds being requested there. And then there are two other sheets that are specific to the contractor. Albemarle Commission is the contracted agency for nutrition, home-delivered meals, for nutrition in general, and small home repairs, and GITS is the contract agency for transportation. So those two additional pages are for those two contracted agencies to sign with the chairman of the commissioner's signature and the finance officer. The summary is just the full budget.
All right. What is the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we approve said changes to the proposed budget.
Second.
There's a motion, a second, to approve the amendments to the Home Community Care Block Grant budget. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Thank you.
All right, our next item will be our planning director, Ms. Morgan Jethro.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Is your mic on?
I'm just short. Can you hear me now? Okay. Before you, you've got the landscaping and signage ordinances that you asked for me to bring back for more discussion from your meeting. I did some research of the counties in our general area just to compare what they have in their zoning ordinances. For Currituck, Chowan, Perquimans, and Camden have both landscaping and signage ordinances. Two have only signage, that's Bertie and Hertford. Only one has just a landscaping ordinance, and that's Pasquotank. So all of our neighbors do have something in place. As of recently, there's been maybe just a little bit of concern about the list of recommended trees and shrubs. I just wanted to make you aware that before the planning board approved this, that we did seek outside counsel from the Cooperative Extension Office. Ms. Katie Shook is your area horticulture agent. She reviewed the list, and I incorporated all of her recommended changes into the list. Some were completely removed, some had some modifications made. I'm not sure what the credentials are of those who do have a negative perception of the list, but I did want to make you aware that we have done our due diligence, and we have had other agencies review our work and have made modifications accordingly. So, if you have any further questions.
Okay. I take it we've had our public hearing for the ordinances, the amendments. Do you have someone that want to speak on that?
I think Mary Lou said she'd like to speak during this discussion.
Right. All right, Mary Lou, we'll allow you to speak now. We're not in public hearing, but certainly you can comment on it.
Thank you. My concern with the, my husband's concern with the landscaping ordinance is not that there is or is not an ordinance, but if there's going to be one, it should be a good one with the list, I guess, Morgan was referring to our comments that we made to her and the planning board in January in regards to the list of plants. Yes, Katie Shook did make some modifications, but if you want to put out a list of preferred plants to come to Gates County, you want the best list possible of the adapted plants for Gates County for a larger survival rate. Plus, you do not want to include invasive plants in that list, of which there are 6 still. And you also want the description to be technically accurate for each of the plants. The invasive plant list is not a personal preference. I have from 6 of the plants are listed in this invasive plants of North Carolina by Sherry Smith, Twin Horse. The North Carolina Department of Transportation put this out in 2008. I have 2 additional copies. Okay? The North Carolina Native Plant Society lists the invasive plants for North Carolina. I also have.
Are they the same?
They have very similar plants. We've highlighted the ones that are referred to in the list for Gates County. The description of the plants is also taken from, all taken from one book that Carborough as well as Currituck has copied. That does not make them accurate. But Carborough has gone another step further and included the Native Plant Society's invasive plant list in their landscaping ordinance. Now, by invasive plants, I don't mean native or non-native. They are both applicable here, depending on the plant, and our hydric soil, which is a major consideration. What we're talking about are invasive plants. Think kudzu, the vine that ate the South. Purple loosestrife, clogged up waterways. That's the kind of plant that is an invasive plant that is in our list. And I don't think, as commissioners, you want to recommend that the public plant more of these when other organizations and states are trying to ban them and put them on their do not plant list. Here is the list of invasive plant species put out by just a straight list. The others have descriptions put out by the Native Plant Society of North Carolina. Go to another state, Virginia, invasive alien plant species of Virginia. As you can see, we're not making this up. This is not personal opinion of those plants that are on the list. South Carolina, same thing. Also, my husband, you're asking for credentials. He's been 30 years plus with USDA and plant materials programs. So he has a lot of experience with plants. 12 years we've lived in Gates County. We've had native plant nurseries and seeds. He's doing plantings up and down the East Coast as a consultant. He did this for free in his own time. He's also working with habitats for Virginia Tech. So he does have credentials, and he is trying to help the county that he's living in, trying to make at least what we recommend in our beauty to be appropriate and to make the county look professional and not copy and paste with inaccurate technical descriptions. If you want a copy of his comments, we sent them to the planning board and planning director in January. There's 2 copies. He rewrote the ordinance. If you'd like to look at it with additions and deletions, there's 2 more copies we brought. And that's pretty much all I have to say about the invasive part. Now, he also made comments in his comments as to some of the changes in the language, which, technical things. It's soil tolerance, not technically accurate. Use drought tolerant. Plants are not adaptive. They are adapted. You don't bring them here and hope they'll change because we have hydric soil and they needed dry soil, or well-drained soil, excuse me. Those are the little changes that make it a more professional list. So in conclusion, you can have these copies if you'd like to look through them. But my husband and my comments today are, we hope that if you do choose to have a landscape ordinance, that you review this list again and remove the invasive plants and make the descriptions technically accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I would just like to comment on that. The invasive kudzu and whatnot is not on the list that we have in front of you, and the purple, whatever the other vine was, those are not on the list.
I use them as examples because most people know what kudzu is as an invasive plant.
And if you want to utilize strictly North Carolina species for landscaping, the planning board and I discussed this at the get-go back in November, I believe it was, that it's going to be very difficult for a landscaper to go locate strictly only North Carolina native species in a nursery. Also, it's not very practical. You can't landscape with longleaf pines and dogwoods. And as far as invasive goes, like a ginkgo tree, I can't even get them to grow in my yard. I can't imagine them just propagating in Gates County just freely. Yes, this did come from Currituck County with some adjustments. I trust Ms. Shook's opinion. She took a look at the list. She made some adjustments and some recommendations of changes, but I would tend to agree with her opinion. However, that is your choice.
Okay. All right. I think at this time, I'd like to get recommendations from the commissioners on how we want to move forward on the landscaping ordinance. Kenny, you want to start out?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see us have a workshop where all 5 of us sit down and talk about this before we do anything on it. And I'd like to also say that on the signage also, I'd like to see a workshop on that. If we could do them 2 different days or all together in one day would be fine with me.
Okay. Commissioner Owen?
Mr. Chairman, I have had a conversation with a couple of commissioners before today and a little bit during our break, and this is exactly what I'd like to do, is a recommendation that Commissioner Jernigan just made. And I tell you why. There's so much in both of the signage and the landscaping documents that I agree with. And talking to the other commissioners, there's a lot of agreement in here, but maybe something that they differ on is another item. I think if we had that opportunity to go through it line by line, I don't think there would be a tremendous amount of changes, but where we have disagreements on or want to see something stated a little bit differently, I think that workshop opportunity, being the commissioners, it naturally be an open meeting, would just be us around this table hashing that out. I think, because I personally have made the motion that I think earlier in previous meeting that we need to get this on the books and adapt it as we grow. I certainly would like to take in consideration this lady's presentation, to take in consideration the expertise that her husband, I believe, brings to the table at that same meeting. So I would be in favor of the landscaping issue, if we're just talking about that one, to hash that out in a workshop in the month of April and get this behind us.
Okay. Commissioner Hoare?
Well, I tend to agree with that, but the one thing I would say about this, I think that we need to do some things, and I appreciate what the planning board has done, trying to do. This is completely outside my level of expertise. I'm a financial guy. I look at numbers and things like that, but I liken it almost to the second thing, that sometimes we have a lot of people putting numbers into the calculator and it yields a result. They look at that and they think it's true just because they put it in the calculator. And they don't use critical thinking skills sometimes to apply that knowledge and ask, is this reasonable? And that's the way I see this. And with the comments that's been made, I don't know if we have that level of expertise. And I mean, but we all want to do the best possible job we can for Gates County and do that. And we have a planning board that are trying to accomplish something, and And I think we all need to have some input in that, but we do want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. I don't want to burden our citizens with a lot of regulations that are unnecessary. However, the way I interpreted these, I thought these were basically related more to a commercial basis than anything else, especially on the signage thing. However, I wouldn't want to have offensive signs throughout the county, someone that had some that were offensive religiously or whatever that impacts someone. But anything that we can share to gain knowledge and to improve the situation, that we all have a learning experience, because we're not experts. I mean, I don't know of anybody up here or on the planning board that are true experts in this thing. But seeking knowledge and trying to enhance that, I'm prepared to do that. And I think what has been proposed is a good deal, because we do want to make the right decisions for all the citizens of Gates County. So I would probably be in favor of that. I don't think we have to have this today, so you know, it's not something that's of a pertinent nature that we got to have it right now. But there again, I want to acknowledge our planning board and the efforts that they're doing at this, because they're doing the same thing. They're trying to do something that's right for the county. And but we do want to make sure we're making the right decision.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hoare. I too agree with having a workshop to go over this thoroughly. One of my concerns is that when we put ordinances in place, we need to make sure we have the right ordinance, a good ordinance, because in the past we've been guilty of putting specifically a zoning ordinance in place that has not served us the way that we really want it to serve us. So, you know, while we're not experts in this, I think we need to use all avenues available to make sure that this is what fits Gates County. And you know, if we just could rely on the sources of the experts to say that a landscape ordinance or a signage ordinance was the right thing, you wouldn't need the commissioner's signature, but the commissioners have to sign this. So, you know, we do have to become knowledgeable. We do have to become efficient enough to know what we're signing, and that's what been one of my pet concerns, is that when commissioners put their signature on something, they need to know what they're signing, and because ultimately we are held responsible for that. If it's bad, the commissioners made it bad. They don't go back to who put it together, but the commissioners put it in place. So I think the thing that we need to do is has been proposed, and we can move forward that in a motion, if you will, that we sit down and make sure we've got this the way that it should be, and when it's in place, we should be able to defend it. So, board, Ken, if you want to make that a motion, we can move forward in that. Holding this off till we put together a workshop.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we have a meeting and look at this again as a group of commissioners sometime within the next 30 days.
Would you want to include any of the planning board in there? If they are, as an open meeting.
Well, it would be an open meeting, and we could certainly take comments from them as we go through the discussion.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to review the ordinance during a workshop commissioners meeting, special meeting.
I think you said commissioners only, but I heard.
Yeah, it'll be open, and any planning board that would want to come, certainly they would be welcome.
Just to clarify, you mean both sign and landscape, correct?
Right.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion on the floor for the landscape and signage ordinance workshops. Is there a second?
Discussion. I would like to have the planning board included in that. I mean, they put the effort in this, and I think that's only fair that we have an open discussion so we come to a consensus on what we agree to, that we don't start going back and forth, this kind of thing. We need to do something.
There's a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to include that then, if so be it.
All right, we've amended his motion. And if there's no further discussion, we'll call for the second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay. Diane, would you set up a date that suits everybody?
Okay. Moving on, Beaver Lake Cabins. Okay, I'm sure you're wondering, why do you have this? This is something that is going back to 2006. I'm sure, as you can see in the minutes that you were given from 2006, now what I need is just a letter from the Board of Commissioners authorizing Beaver Lake Cabins to construct their 6 cabins, as they have been approved to do via a variance procedure that was kind of an ad hoc procedure created prior to us ever having zoning. We did not have zoning at that time, so Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Jeff Mitchell, is here, and I'm sure he would like to speak with the board and maybe just give a general idea of what he plans on doing. But if you have any questions for me, feel free.
Certainly, Mr. Mitchell.
Morgan, you stated right then 6 cabins or 3?
It is a total of 6. Only 3 are being constructed right now. I've got their building permits right here. But it's going to be a total of 6.
They've been issued?
Only 3 permits have been put together. They have not been issued yet. I can't issue them until I get the letter from the Board of Commissioners authorizing. And there is a large plat right there in the middle for you all to look at if you'd like.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and address any questions that you might have. Just to fill in a little bit of background on this issue, because I realize that none of the seated commissioners were actively involved in the board at that time in 2006. But at Beaver Lake, we came before the planning board and the Board of Commissioners subsequently back in 2006 and requested permission to be able to construct up to 6 cabins for our personal use on the grounds at Beaver Lake. And for practical reasons, we wanted to vet that process with the powers that be and based on county and state regulations to make sure that that concept could be carried to fruition before we put time, effort, and money into planning and developing the necessary infrastructure to get to where we are today. In that process, and working with Randall Cahoon, the Planning Board, and the Board of Commissioners at that time, we were granted that approval and permission subject to, prior to obtaining the final building permits and beginning the building process, coming back to the Planning Board and Board of Commissioners with the plot plan, the detailed plot plan, and blueprints of the cabins that were being built. So that's what you have before you today. We had the plot plan professionally engineered and surveyed and prepared for you, and the 3 cabins out of the inevitable 6 are ready to start as soon as we're able to obtain these final building permits.
Okay. Morgan, what would need to be done differently at this time? Obviously, there was no zoning ordinance in place, but he would just need to go through the, Board of Adjustments?
Correct. If this were modern, we would go through the Board of Adjustments, and they would issue a variance, and then it would all be said and done.
All right. What are the issues with that?
If you were to do a variance via the Board of Adjustments,
Is it just the cost, and is there a cost implication in that, 600?
it is $650 for a variance.
So, Mr. Mitchell and the associates would incur a $650 cost, is that right?
If it were modern, yes, sir. They went before the Planning Board for their variance, and then the Board of Commissioners for their variance back in 2006, before we actually had a procedure in place. So the Planning Board reviewed his documentation just this past week. They said, look fine to them. They've sought to approve it, and now it's here for you guys to approve.
I believe one of the planning board members, Mr. Brothers, you want to say something?
Thank you for the opportunity. We did pass this unanimous, if memory serves me right, but there's one thing that we wanted to reiterate, and this is a phrase that Morgan has just used, modern. We wanted the Board of Commissioners to fully understand that this had a special playing field because of what it brought to the table prior to zoning and subdivision. So if somebody was to come here tomorrow, they would have to jump through the hoops as per what we've got in place today. And that was one of my concerns, that that we needed some documentation in our minutes to show of why it was approved and the parameters of why it was approved. And so if somebody came in and asked a question, well, this is going forth now, why can't I do the same thing? That needed to be reinforced as to 2006 timeline versus 2012, what somebody in 2012 would have to do the same thing that they're asking right now. So that's the only thing that I wanted to make y'all aware of, was the fact that we as a board did approve it. It was unanimous. We had in-depth discussion, but we wanted it fully understood that this had special circumstances. Thank you.
Before you leave, Chuck, I agree. Your documentation is assuring in the minutes and in your minutes that we're not setting precedents here.
Correct.
Did you address any other future proposed structures like we're looking at here in the future for this group, or does this close the door for them?
What we saw was 6 proposals. Okay. And there was no communication to us that I'm aware of that it was going to be 2 or 3 done at one point in time and then 2 or 3 done at all. What we saw was a total of 6 units sharing 2 septic systems. Is that correct? So that's what we saw. And that is what you've got there before you today.
So if Beaver Lake came before you, before the board, 18 months, 2 years from now, has the gate been closed on this? I mean, are they going to then come under the modern?
Well, that was one of my questions from the planning board perspective, is that I think the whole tract is 650 acres, isn't that right? 250, excuse me. And that because this came in prior to, this held that special set of circumstances. My concern was if they wanted to do this in the future, come back with 6, that they would have to jump through the modern hoops, and that is correct.
Okay.
Jack, addressing your concern. The request then and carried forward was for 6 cabins on the plot plan as you see it. And Beaver Lake understands that if we were to come back in the future and want a 7th cabin or some other residence on the property, then we would have to start
Modern rules.
Modern rules.
Good. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, but at the same note, I do want the minutes, if approved, to reflect that this is for those 6, so that, and we're doing the 3 immediately, but when 4, 5, and 6 come up, that they wouldn't have to come back through this again, if possible. Thanks.
Could you just give us a little insight on why the delay occurred from 2006 until now? I mean, what was the company facing or individuals facing that we didn't move forward on it at that particular time?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was just, we phased this out over this time period to do all the necessary infrastructure improvements that had to be done. I mean, this is not a business or a for-profit enterprise or anything of that nature. This is individual use among a group of partners that owns this property. So, you know, to have done it all immediately would have been a big financial burden. We had to do a lot of grounds preparation, tree removal. All that was one big phase. bulkheading that part of the lake was another big and very expensive phase, working with the county health department and getting the design for the septic systems, which there are 2 individual systems that will support 3 cabins each. And then having that all installed was another expensive phase. Then the following year, we did the power grid. All that's been done. So we tried to stage that out, but we were deliberately moving forward every year. And now we're at the point where we're shovel ready.
Do you have any idea or any kind of projection on when the other 3 might be ready for build out? Another 4 years, 3 years?
I do not. I do not.
You don't anticipate 10 years? Well,
I don't anticipate that, but then I'm not writing that check, so I can't positively address that.
I appreciate that. It appears that the Board of Commissioners in 2006 did approve it. They're moving forward with this. And as I read the minutes, you could almost gather from that they issued a letter. But where is the letter? We can't find the letter authorizing it. Have the Board of Adjustments or anyone on that board looked at the plan and
The planning board did.
the planning board did?
We just did this past week.
All right. Any of our members of the planning board on the Board of Adjustments?
No, they cannot do dual work.
All right. You're familiar with the requirements of the Board of Adjustments. Did you see anything that would conflict with current requirements?
The major issue here is that right now the zoning ordinance says you only have 1 dwelling per parcel. And that's what this is hinging around, is there are multiple dwellings upon 1 parcel. But this was prior to us having zoning. I really can't see any other conflicts at this point.
1 dwelling per parcel?
Yes,
And this
sir.
is a 1 parcel?
Yes, sir. It is all 1 parcel, 250 acres, and there are 6 cabins. And this was approved in 2006. Also, just so you know, they did get their wetland determination work done. There are no jurisdictional wetlands on that property where these are going to be constructed.
Good seeing you.
Yep.
Gentlemen, we talked about, some of us did at the break. I think the proper way to handle this would be refer, certainly the commissioners at the May 2006 meeting passed this. None of y'all were sitting. I think you would have authority to issue a letter just referring back to these minutes and allow, because I don't think you can go back and disallow something that another board has already allowed, and just go ahead and write a letter allowing, since the planning board has looked at it, allowing this 6 cabin proposal to go forward would be my recommendation. But specifically refer to the fact that this was not done by this sitting board, but because of the minutes reflect it was an oversight on someone's part back in May of '06 not to write the letter at that time and get it in Jeff's hands or whoever's hands it needed to be in.
All right, thank you. Okay, Board, we've heard the presentation and the request. What is the pleasure of the Board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve these changes to that location as presented to us by the Planning Board.
Second.
Let's clarify the motion, if you will.
Okay,
All right. Your motion is that we approve moving forward
As it's been presented
by previous commissioners.
With the, and I will add to that motion to include the statements by our county attorney being in that documentation.
And this is for 6 cabins?
For 6 cabins, yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Second.
All right, any further discussion before we vote? All right, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of moving forward with allowing the 6 cabins on Beaver Lake to be constructed, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All in favor, nay. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
One last very brief thing for you all. County Manager and I have discussed some proposed amendment changes to the subdivision ordinance. You may or may not be aware of what those are. A reduction of road frontage from 175 to 125, increasing the threshold of a minor subdivision from 2 lots or less to 3 lots, changing the technical review committee to where they only review major subdivisions and allowing for an expedited plat review process, and amending the parent parcel rule. Planning Board is reviewing this. They are seeking citizen comment right now. I just want to make you aware that they'll have a recommendation for you in the next 30 days. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We will make sure the letter is constructed.
Yeah, we'll make sure it gets constructed and delivered this time.
All right, thank you all. Okay, our next item is new business, and Mr. Rodney Johnson, Vice Chair of Albemarle Resource Conservation Development Council.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Hey, Rodney.
I have to get up close and personal about this.
All right, all right.
Computer's gone down and been making some noises. Sorry about that. It may have shut down. There we go. While that's coming up, I'll reintroduce myself. Rodney Johnson. I'm Vice Chairman of the Albemarle RC&D Council, which is the 10 counties around the Albemarle Sound. And we've been in existence since 1976. I'm a volunteer on the council, but before I retired in 2005, I served as project coordinator for the Albemarle Council and worked on projects in all the counties, including many of them here in Gates County. Let me get this started. Okay, on the council representing Gates County, we have Mr. Nickens, Carlton Nickens, I think, who you appointed recently. He has not been to a meeting yet, but he's fairly new. And Mr. Joe Harrell has been appointed by the Soil and Water Conservation District. The past representatives for Gates County were Mr. E.B. Hudgens and Willie Hoffler with the school system. So, in your package, you have a list of the projects a list of some of the projects that have been done over the past years, and I think you have a letter explaining why we're here requesting your support in the future. But let me go through some of the projects first. The Gates County School Water Quality Project that was just done in the last 2 or 3 years, where the kids were involved in putting in wetland plants and so forth, and an observation deck for an outdoor classroom. And after Hurricane Isabel in 2003, I was working then. We received $2 million almost to remove debris from streams and drainage systems in all the counties in the Albemarle area, and there were $150,000 spent for that here in Gates County. Merchants Mill Pond State Park, we've been able to get some campsites on Bennett's Creek between Gatesville and the Mill Pond, and those were just inspected recently, and they'll be used in conjunction with the Mill Pond camping, the state park camping program. But it's for paddlers leaving Merchants Mill Pond, coming downstream and utilizing the rest of Bennett's Creek. Very nice platforms, and there's some primitive campsites also. That's a picture of those. Sorry about the color. My computer looks good. I think it's in the projector to record or something. There was a constructed wetland water quality project done here in the town of Gatesville. All of you are probably aware of that, to improve the drainage coming through town, try to eliminate some of the flooding, and to keep the water quality in Bennett's Creek good at the same time. When I was working in the 80s and 90s, we did a lot of projects at the community center and behind the school. All of that complex was done with grants that I wrote for the county and the school system to put in all of those facilities and improvements. I think tennis courts, ball fields, the fitness trail all the way around the complex and so forth were done with grant money that RC&D assisted your county with. Over the past 30 years or so, you've received $68 in grant funds for every dollar that you put in the RC&D program. So a lot of years you paid $200 in dues, then we had to go up because we lost some funding for an administrative assistant, and now I'm going to be talking about some more funding we've lost and why it's important that you understand why we need a little help, possibly if you have a new project. In the past, your county dues, which are at present have been $750. I understand you went to Tier 2, which we asked $1,200 annual dues for that. That maintains our office administrative assistant, keeping the doors open for our office. But the federal funding that covered the cost of the project coordinator, salary, benefits, vehicle, travel, office equipment, supplies, all of that, we lost last April when the federal government started trimming down, trimming the budget, getting rid of the deficit. That was to the tune of $100,000. So that eliminated 70% of our funding. And what we would like to do, we didn't know exactly how to approach it. We had several options. Closing our doors was one, but we've done so many good projects in the area that we'd like to continue to help counties do those projects. But now we don't have the funds to pay for the technical assistance to develop those projects and write the grants to get you the funds to put those projects in place. So what we're asking is that if you have a project that you would like RC&D to assist you with in the future, that you would pay an hourly rate for that technical assistance. We have Mark Powell, who replaced me in 2005, and he's still living in the area. He's still doing contract work, and we have him working on a large rural center grant that we received that we've got to continue working on it and complete it over the next 2 years. It's a wind turbine project, educational and workforce development type project. So we have to keep working on that, and we've got money for him to do that. But if he's going to help a county with a grant application and get a project going, we need that county to pay for that technical assistance. That he's asking $50 an hour, which include no benefits or anything. And that's not a bad deal for a grant writing assistance. And you pay that to the RC&D council, and we just pass it on to him. If you had a project, it's hard to put a figure on what would be needed for that up front, but that could be negotiated when the project comes forward. Then you decide whether you're going to pay for that or not, and the project would either go forward or not. So that's kind of how we felt like was the best way to handle this, rather than ask each county to pay $3,000 to $5,000 more each year to cover the cost of that. And then one county may not have a project that year, and they'd start complaining about it. So we felt like this would be a fair way to approach it on a project-by-project base.
How was Gates County made aware of past projects, the availability of them? I mean, was Albemarle Resource Conservation Development Council instrumental in making the county aware of projects that the county could obtain or apply for? Because most of the time, you know, as a county, we may know some projects, but a lot of them, you know, we don't know about. And so you're saying that we would initiate the grant writing by requesting your services.
Most of the projects came forward from Gates County. I'd say 95% of them. In some cases, we might bring to the county and say, we might come to the county and say, there's grant money available for this type of project. So some of them we helped initiate, but most of them came from council members and school board, you know, school staff, you know, where projects were needed, they saw a need, they brought it to the council. Some cases, the county commissioners may not be aware unless their representative told them about it. But, you know, all these projects occurred. We did drainage projects on all the school grounds, and the county commissioners at that time were well aware of what was going on with that. You know, we funded 80–90% of those projects.
Are you all the only one available that do this type of project, these type of grant writings?
I'm sure we're not the only one, but for the types of projects we do, for water quality, constructed wetlands, outdoor classrooms, water access, waterfront development, you know, I think we serve a certain niche that there aren't many people that do that. I mean, you could hire an engineering firm to do what we do probably, but I think we're pretty unique in the projects we've worked on in the past. And you have a list of those projects, I think, what they cost and the grant money and what your share was.
What is the status of your entity? Nonprofit?
We're a 501c3 nonprofit, have been since the early 80s, yes. So that we could write grants that came through us, or we can write them for, most of the time we've written them for sponsors. And, you know, some of the administrative fees can be written into the grant, but not up to and including the grant writing. Usually it's after you get the grant, you can get administrative funds for administering the grant, you know, doing the contract work and stuff like that. But we can handle all of that for you. And if the money could be written into the grant, then you certainly wouldn't be charged for that. That would be used to pay for technical assistance if it was in the grant.
Any more questions or comments from Mr. Johnson? Well, we're certainly appreciative of you bringing this to the board, and we'll take a look at it, and we'll get back with you as to where we go from here.
Okay, appreciate that very much. And we realize your budget work goes from now to June 30th, so whenever you decide, we're just going to go with the majority of the counties also, because we have 10 county members. We'd like to have everybody on board. So.
Right. But just for the sake of information, let's say if you had 9 counties that did agree to this, and you had one that didn't, and the one that didn't pay the annual fees, would you not continue to serve that one county that didn't? I mean, if you're going to pay the annual fees.
Well, those annual fees don't pay the technical assistance. They pay to keep our doors open. You know, the administrative costs, the office costs. Now we don't have anything coming in to pay for office costs, equipment, and administrative assistance.
I guess what I'm saying is that those services would be available. Obviously, you'd make the decision to move forward with retaining the services of Mr. Powell.
Yes.
So if that one county that didn't agree to it, they would have to agree to it at that time and saying, well, you know, if you want us to do this project, you're going to have to pay the $50.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rodney, I would like to thank you and everything that has been done in the past, because I've worked on several of those projects with the Gatesville snagging, the creek, and some of the water streams, the canoe launch area at the mill pond into the creek. These were things that I did with the stewards of Bennett's Creek, and there's a great need out there, and I know y'all cleaned out some ditches here around Gatesville for water control, and you're doing some great things, and I personally would like to see it. The only problem that I see that we have with it is the $50 per hour, not knowing how many hours are going to be out there. I personally would like to see something in writing, say 10 hours or 50 hours or 100 hours, and a set fee set on those type things that we as commissioners can put in our budget. All right, we're going to get, say, 100 hours if needed, and then we put down $5,000 in our budget. I feel like that might need to be something that comes from your department.
Right. Well, we've used the rule of thumb of 3 to 5 days to pre-plan a project, maybe another 3 to 5 days to write a grant. But they're so different. A grant application can take
Right.
hours or it can take days. So it's hard to come up with that. We can give you a range and a maximum probably, but we can't give you a specific.
Well, we're getting ready to work on our budget, and if you were to have something that you're going to give us and it's not something that has to be totally used, but it gives us a place that we can put 100 hours of this gentleman's time, and 100 hours to me is a lot of time, and then we can set a figure of $5,000 for that time and put it in our budget or future budgets so we can see it.
It sounds like that in any situation, you probably wouldn't go over 20 days. Probably not. But based on past projects, you should be able to get an idea of what the time it's taken. And as Commissioner Jernigan said, that gives us some idea. County Manager, would you make a note that'll be a discussion item during our budget workshops?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, one thing to take into consideration too is that if we set aside dollars for the grant writing portion and we find a project that we deem worthy, but if we don't get the grant money, we don't do the project. So we can, in our budget, when we're thinking about that, we can be thinking about the annual dues and maybe setting aside minimum dollars for the grant writing and take it from that approach.
And in some of these grants, I think you can probably put some of your fees back in that to recoup some of those fees too, can't you? Or can you?
It's hard for that money to be retroactive.
Right, okay. Okay.
Usually from the day you get the grant on, you can
Right.
include expenses to help carry out the project.
But definitely we need to see something that we can put in our budget to show a figure, whether we spend it or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney.
How many of these are Tier 2? I think Camden, Currituck, Dare, and Gates. Is there another one on this list that's a Tier 2 now? Is Washington, I don't,
The Chowan went down in the
yeah, I
last
think,
cycle.
I'm,
Pasco Tank is Tier 2.
I would say Pasco Tank is Tier 2.
so maybe 5 and 5.
Thank you.
All right, good. All right, our next item on the agenda will be Ms. Adrian Bradley, JCPC.
Good afternoon to you all.
Good afternoon.
I come making my annual visit, come representing, serving as chairperson of the Gates County Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. Each year, we put out information in the newspaper to let people know that grant funding or funding is available from the Division of Juvenile Justice to fund programs to help with preventing juvenile delinquency. And so, again, this year, the Alternatives for Youth program, which is based out of the Gates County school system, we have a social worker who's working 20 hours a week who works to do interpersonal skill building for youth who have come into contact with the court system or youth who are at risk. Maybe their behaviors look like they're leading down that path. So the Alternatives for Youth program has been recommended for approval. It was approved through the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, and also the Genesis program, which is based out of the Cooperative Extension Agency. With that program, they do tutoring and academic enhancement. The target population for the Genesis program is males, all males. And so they have a person who works as their program manager. He goes out to the schools and is available at each of the schools a particular day of the week to do tutoring, but they also try to do field trips or camps or other opportunities to get these young people involved. So enhancing what they're already doing within the schools. Also, now, as I said, Genesis is based out of the Cooperative Extension Office. Also, the restitution program, if we have young people who get in trouble, they have an opportunity where they can do some community service and try to pay back people for damage that's done at their property. And so those are the programs that I'm coming back to you. These are the programs that were recommended last school year, and these programs are being recommended again. So you should have in front of you a copy of 2 funding plans. One funding plan, which was signed on March the 20th by me, I serve as the chairperson, is for the 2012-2013 program. You see the Alternatives for Youth is receiving $32,831 from the Division of Juvenile Justice. The Genesis and Restitution program, they're receiving $28,468. And then there's some local in-kind coming from both of the programs. So the county total amount that you're receiving from the Division of Juvenile Justice is $61,299. But with the local in-kind that each program puts in, then we're looking at $73,840. So again, this is coming to you as a recommendation from our Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, who approved this at our meeting on March 14th. I believe you also have a second document. We had to do a revision for the funding for the current school year. That document was signed on March 21st. That's for the 2011-2012 year, and we had to move $1,500 from the Alternatives for Youth program. That money had been set aside for psychological assessments that the judges could order if need be. So it was not used for that purpose, so it was moved over to the Genesis program. So I wanted to ask your approval for both of those, the new funding year 2012-2013, and then the revision for 2011-2012. I also have a copy, Ms. Hendricks has some copies of the executive summary that just talks a little bit more about what the procedures are, that we identified what the issues and factors are for Gates County. You'll see what our target priorities for funding: interpersonal, vocational skills, tutoring, academic enhancement, restitution, and then talks about what the funding recommendations are. And so I will stop and see if you all have questions of me.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. Adrian, I understand the Genesis is ran through Extension. That makes perfect sense. Who runs the Alternatives for Youth?
It's operated through the school system.
Okay.
And I serve as the chair. I serve as the program manager. And we have a social worker who's based at the high school who is the case manager.
For the schools?
That's right.
That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Adrian, how often are you folks called on by the court system here in the county?
Our social worker, now I can't speak directly for Genesis, but I know that our social worker, she has contact with the court counselors. There are two court counselors that work here in our area, and I know she has regular contact with them. As a matter of fact, the court counselors often are the ones who make the referrals to our social worker about who needs to be involved in these programs.
Right, so the juveniles that you're working with are sort of they're sent to you?
Yeah, in some cases,
Right.
that's right, that's right. Probably the majority the referrals come from those court counselors. Occasionally, we have a student maybe who's getting into trouble, and we may have a teacher make a recommendation for someone to come into the program. But as I said, a lot of them come from the court counselors. Yeah.
All right. Any other comments? I think the program has benefited the county quite a bit over the years.
Yes, it has.
We anticipate to continue to do so. It looks like we have two requests. That's an adjustment for
2011, 2012, that's an adjustment.
All right.
And then the actual approval for 2012, 2013.
All right.
Ms. Brown, I don't know if it means anything, but these two numbers aren't the same.
They're not jiving?
It's about $125, but I
Okay.
mean, it's just flip-flop, the total's the same, but
Okay.
I don't know if it means anything,
All
that they
right.
must be, or
All
whatever.
right. I'll check back with our regional consultant is the one who helped us pull together our paperwork.
Yeah, they just, like I said, it looks like they just flip-flop $125 somewhere.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, we probably should, I make a motion on the amendment first,
All right.
to approve the amendment as presented.
You want to do them together or separate?
I'd like to do them separately.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to approve the amended Juvenile Crime Prevention Council adjustment
To the funding plan.
to the funding plan for 2011 and 12. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make a motion that we approve the 2012, 2013 budget as presented as well.
The funding plan.
Funding plan, excuse me.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion on the floor.
Second.
All right, any discussion? If there's no other discussion, we will, all in favor of approving the 2012 and 13 funding plan, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our new business, and we'll have citizen comments.
Mr. Chairman, I have one thing I'd like to talk about just a minute.
All right.
Before we move on. One of our citizens contacted me this week and wanted to have this drop box out here, the parking designated a no parking area, and Toby had some signs out there that says no parking. But I think what we need to do is have some lines put on the asphalt out there, marked out as no parking, to try to keep people out of out of the area of that drop box.
All right. We want to have the county manager take a look into that.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Rather than voting on it.
No problem.
Okay.
All right. Okay. On our public citizens' comments, Ms. Mary Lou McLennan.
I already said my
Okay.
piece, but these handouts here, these extra ones, are for the county commissioners to you. If you need more copies, I can send you links.
I'd certainly like to have a copy of the marked-up landscape ordinance showing what's preferred rather than what's been presented.
That's fine, Mary Lou. We'll make copies for their meeting.
One that he wrote.
Can,
In his credentials, I forgot to mention, he's also an AICP planner and a certified forester. I think he had enough credentials to assist in preparing a document for you guys to look at.
could you send those to us electronically?
Yes, I can.
Gov site, just
The
go on the
Gov
Gov
site?
site, yes.
Okay. I tried that one time with a grant application. I didn't know if you guys got it or not.
Just send it to Diane and she'll get it to him.
All right, Anthony?
I think I spoke to you recently about this, but even though even though if I'm not voting for certain people or whoever signs up there, I've already seen one that's already been pulled up, defaced, which I think I give a picture to Diane if y'all want to see it. And I know at the last elections, there were more than, I don't know, probably 50 or more signs that were pulled up everywhere. Some of them you can tell if it's by storm, if they're damaged by storm, whether or not. Some of them you can, tell that somebody's been pulling up or defacing them.
All right.
I wasn't able to I'm still trying to pinpoint who's doing it, but I found that on the internet, on the online internet.
Those signs are protected by law when you put them there. They're not supposed to be tampered with. And so if anyone's doing that, they are in violations of what the law has provided for campaign signs to be erected. So.
If I see a sign laying down, is it all right to stick it back in the ground, or do I have to call somebody, or?
I think the campaigner would probably appreciate it, but.
Because I've been heard, I've been heard by somebody saying, if somebody sees you trying to stick it back in the ground, somebody's going to say, "Oh, you did it."
Yeah. Well, like I said, they are protected, and you may want to let someone know that the sign is down, or I guess we couldn't give you recommendations on how to handle that, but it's important to know that those signs are protected.
Okay, I just want to bring that to y'all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, this concludes all of our business items. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Horner, do you have any comments today?
Well, I appreciate all those people that are still left in the audience there. Glad you're here today to see county government at work. And just encourage someone else to come, and hope everyone has a happy Easter.
Jack?
I just want to make the you gentlemen aware and citizens that last week I was made aware that E.V. Williams, the transportation people that are going to be doing the project out on Highway 158, have approached some of the landowners, and some have been given a timeline of 90 days to be out of their homes. So probably be hearing more about that. And I see signs out there, a few more markings. It looks like they're getting ready to start that project. So we'll probably be hearing some more from them.
Yeah, just kind of clarify that. I think if they're going to leave their homes, they have to have some type of comparable compensation. Is that?
Oh, yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay.
But anyway, they're moving, progressing forward with that, in case anybody was wondering where that project was going.
Okay. Ken? Journey?
I'd like to thank everybody for coming today, and hopefully that we all have a wonderful Easter and a safe Easter. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I, too, thank everyone for coming and being a part of our local government. It's something that we can be a part of. It's not in Washington, D.C., it's not in Raleigh, and believe it or not, your presence do make a difference. And I, too, wish everyone have a great and happy Easter. Thank you for coming. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to have a closed session in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143, 318.11A3. Is there a motion to enter closed session?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motion second that we will enter closed session in accordance with the North Carolina General Statute. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, thank you all.
Thank y'all.
All right, we'll call for the motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motion second, we come out of closed session. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, we're out of closed session, and County Manager, you'll move forward on the requests made by Attorney Godman, and get back with him and to the board at the next meeting.
I will.
All right. There's no other discussion, comments, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been probably motion and second to adjourn. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, adjourn.